a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Freddie Mercury. Farrokh Bulsara, known professionally as Freddie Mercury, was a British singer, songwriter and record producer, best known as the lead vocalist of the rock band Queen. He was known for his flamboyant stage persona and four-octave vocal range. Mercury wrote numerous hits for Queen, including Bohemian Rhapsody, Killer Queen, Somebody to Love, Don't Stop Me Now, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and We Are the Champions. He led a solo career while performing with Queen, and occasionally served as a producer and guest musician for other artists. Mercury was born of Parsi descent on Zanzibar, and grew up there and in India before moving with his family to Middlesex, England, in his teens. He formed Queen in 1970 with guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor. Mercury died in 1991 at age 45 due to complications from AIDS, having confirmed the day before his death that he had contracted the disease. In 1992, Mercury was posthumously awarded the Brit Award for Outstanding Contribution to British Music, and a tribute concert was held at Wembley Stadium, London. As a member of Queen, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2001, the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2003, and the UK Music Hall of Fame in 2004. In 2002, he was placed number 58 in the BBC's 2002 poll of the 100 Greatest Britons. He is consistently voted one of the greatest singers in the history of popular music. Early life. Mercury was born Farrokh Bulsara in Stone Town in the British Protectorate of the Zanzibar on 5 September 1946. His parents, Bohemian Rhapsody Bulsara, were Parsis from the Gujarat region of the then province of Bombay Presidency in British India. As Parsis, Mercury and his family practiced the Zoroastrian religion. The Bulsara family had moved to Zanzibar so that his father could continue his job as a cashier at the British Colonial Office. He had a younger sister, Kashmira. Mercury spent most of his childhood in India and began taking piano lessons at the age of 7. In 1954, at the age of 8, Mercury was sent to study at St. Peter's School, a British-style boarding school for boys, in Panchgani near Bombay. At the age of 12, he formed a school band, the Hectics, and covered rock and roll artists such as Cliff Richard and Little Richard. It has been said that one of his formative musical influences at the time was Bollywood singer Lata Mangeshkar, but one of Mercury's former bandmates from the Hectics has said that is a lot of rubbish. The only music he listened to, and played, was Western pop music. A friend from the time recalls that he had an uncanny ability to listen to the radio and replay what he heard on piano. It was also at St. Peter's where he began to call himself Freddie, and in February 1963 he moved back to Zanzibar where he joined his parents at their flat. At the age of 17, Mercury and his family fled from Zanzibar for safety reasons due to the 1964 Zanzibar Revolution, in which thousands of Arabs and Indians were killed. The family moved into a small house at 22 Gladstone Avenue, Feltham, Middlesex, England. Mercury enrolled at Isleworth Polytechnic in West London where he studied art. He ultimately earned a diploma in art and graphic design at Ealing Art College, later using these skills to design the Queen heraldic arms. A British citizen at birth, Mercury remained so for the rest of his life. Following graduation, Mercury joined a series of bands and sold second-hand clothes in Kensington Market in London with girlfriend Mary Austin. He also held a job as a baggage handler at Heathrow Airport. Friends from the time remember him as a quiet and shy young man who showed a great deal of interest in music. In 1969 he joined the Liverpool-based band Ibex, later renamed Wreckage. He lived briefly in a flat above the Liverpool pub, the Dovedale Towers. When this band failed to take off, he joined a second band called Sour Milk Sea. However, By early 1970 this group had broken up as well. In April 1970 Mercury joined guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor, who had previously been in a band called Smile. In 1971 they were joined by bassist John Deacon. Despite reservations of the other members and Trident Studios, the band's initial management, Mercury chose the name Queen for the new band. He later said, "It's very regal obviously, and it sounds splendid. It's a strong name, very universal and immediate. I was certainly aware of the gay connotations, but that was just one facet of it." At about the same time, he changed his surname, Bulsara, to Mercury. Mercury designed Queen's logo, called the Queen Crest, shortly before the release of the band's first album. The logo combines the zodiac signs of all four members: 2 lions for Leo, a crab for Cancer, and 2 fairies for Virgo. The lions embrace a stylized letter Q. The crab rests atop the letter with flames rising directly above it, and the fairies are each sheltering below a lion. There is also a crown inside the Q, and the whole logo is overshadowed by an enormous phoenix. The whole symbol bears a passing resemblance to the royal coat of arms of the United Kingdom, particularly with the lion supporters. Singer. Although Mercury's speaking voice naturally fell in the baritone range, he delivered most songs in the tenor range. His known vocal range extended from bass low F to soprano high F. He could belt up to tenor high F. Biographer David Brett described his voice as escalating within a few bars from a deep, throaty rock growl to tender, vibrant tenor, then onto a high-pitched, perfect coloratura, pure and crystalline in the upper reaches. Spanish soprano Montserrat Caballé, with whom Mercury recorded an album, expressed her opinion that the difference between Freddie and almost all the other rock stars was that he was selling the voice. She adds, "His technique was astonishing. No problem of tempo, he sang with an incisive sense of rhythm, his vocal placement was very good, and he was able to glide effortlessly from a register to another. He also had a great musicality. His phrasing was subtle, delicate and sweet, or energetic and slamming. He was able to find the right coloring or expressive nuance for each word." The Who lead singer Roger Daltrey called Mercury the best virtuoso rock and roll singer of all time. He could sing anything in any style. He could change his style from line to line and, God, that's an art. And he was brilliant at it. A research team undertook a study in 2016 to understand the appeal behind Mercury's voice, led by Professor Christian Herbst. The team identified his notably faster vibrato and use of subharmonics as unique characteristics of Mercury's voice, particularly in comparison to opera singers, and confirmed a vocal range from F to G5, but were unable to confirm claims of a 4-octave range. The research team studied vocal samples from 23 commercially available Queen recordings, his solo work, and a series of interviews of the late artist. They also used an endoscopic video camera to study a rock singer brought in to imitate Mercury's singing voice. Songwriter. Mercury wrote 10 of the 17 songs on Queen's greatest hits album: Bohemian Rhapsody, 7 Seas of Rye, Killer Queen, Somebody to Love, Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy, We Are the Champions, Bicycle Race, Don't Stop Me Now, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and Play the Game. In 2003 Mercury was posthumously inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And in 2005 he was posthumously awarded an Ivor Novello Award for Outstanding Song Collection from the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers, and Authors. The most notable aspect of his songwriting involved the wide range of genres that he used, which included, among other styles, rockabilly, progressive rock, heavy metal, gospel, and disco. As he explained in a 1986 interview, "I hate doing the same thing again and again and again. I like to see what's happening now in music, film and theater and incorporate all of those things." Compared to many popular songwriters, Mercury also tended to write musically complex material. For example, Bohemian Rhapsody is acyclic in structure and comprises dozens of chords. He also wrote 6 songs from Queen II which deal with multiple key changes and complex material. Crazy Little Thing Called Love, on the other hand, contains only a few chords. Despite the fact that Mercury often wrote very intricate harmonies, he also claimed that he could barely read music. He wrote most of his songs on the piano and used a wide variety of different key signatures. Live performer. Mercury was noted for his live performances, which were often delivered to stadium audiences around the world. He displayed a highly theatrical style that often evoked a great deal of participation from the crowd. A writer for The Spectator described him as a performer out to tease, shock and ultimately charm his audience with various extravagant versions of himself. David Bowie, who performed at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert and recorded the song Under Pressure with Queen, praised Mercury's performance style, saying, "Of all the more theatrical rock performers, Freddie took it further than the rest. He took it over the edge. And of course, I always admired a man who wears tights. I only saw him in concert once and as they say, he was definitely a man who could hold an audience in the palm of his hand." Queen guitarist Brian May wrote that Mercury could make the last person at the back of the furthest stand in a stadium feel that he was connected. Mercury's main prop on stage was a broken microphone stand, which after accidentally snapping off the heavy bass during an early performance, he realized could be used in endless ways. One of Mercury's most notable performances with Queen took place at Live Aid in 1985. Queen's performance at the event has since been voted by a group of music executives as the greatest live performance in the history of rock music. The results were aired on a television program called The World's Greatest Gigs. Mercury's powerful, sustained note during the a cappella section came to be known as the note heard round the world. In reviewing Live Aid in 2005, one critic wrote, "Those who compile lists of great rock frontmen and award the top spots to Mick Jagger, Robert Plant, etc. all are guilty of a terrible oversight. Freddie, as evidenced by his Dionysian Live Aid performance, was easily the most godlike of them all." Over the course of his career, Mercury performed an estimated 700 concerts in countries around the world with Queen. A notable aspect of Queen concerts was the large scale involved. He once explained, "We're the Cecil B. DeMille of rock and roll, always wanting to do things bigger and better." The band was the first ever to play in South American stadiums, breaking worldwide records for concert attendance in the Morumbi Stadium in São Paulo in 1981. In 1986, Queen also played behind the Iron Curtain when they performed to a crowd of 80,000 in Budapest, in what was one of the biggest rock concerts ever held in Eastern Europe. Mercury's final live performance with Queen took place on the 9th of August 1986 at Knebworth Park in England and drew an attendance estimated as high as 160,000, with the British national anthem, "God Save the Queen," playing at the end of the concert. Mercury's final act on stage saw him draped in a robe, holding a golden crown aloft, bidding farewell to the crowd. Solo career. In addition to his work with Queen, Mercury put out 2 solo albums and several singles. Although his solo work was not as commercially successful as most Queen albums, the 2 off-Queen albums and several of the singles debuted in the top 10 of the UK music charts. His first solo effort goes back to 1972 under the pseudonym Larry Lurex, when Trident Studios house engineer Robin Jeffrey Cable was working in a musical project, at the time when Queen were recording their debut album. Cable enlisted Mercury to perform lead vocals on the songs I Can Hear Music and Going Back. Both were released together as a single in 1973. 11 years later, Mercury made a contribution to the Richard Wolfe mix of Love Kills on the 1984 album and new soundtrack to the 1927 Fritz Lang film Metropolis. The song, written by Giorgio Moroder in collaboration with Mercury, debuted at the number 10 position in the UK charts. It was produced by Moroder and Mac. Mac also produced the 1987 single, Hold On, which Mercury recorded with actress Jodie for a German action drama Zabu. Mercury's two full albums outside the band were Mr. Bad Guy and Barcelona. Mr. Bad Guy debuted in the top 10 of the UK album charts. In 1993, a remix of Living on My Own, a single from the album, posthumously reached number 1 on the UK singles charts. The song also garnered Mercury a posthumous Ivor Novello Award from the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers, and Authors. Music critic Eduardo Rivadavia describes Mr. Bad Guy as outstanding from start to finish, and expressed his view that Mercury did a commendable job of stretching into uncharted territory. In particular, the album is heavily synthesizer-driven in a way that is not characteristic of previous Queen albums. His second album, Barcelona, recorded with Spanish soprano vocalist Montserrat Caballé, combines elements of popular music and opera. Many critics were uncertain what to make of the album. One referred to it as the most bizarre CD of the year. The album was a commercial success, and the album's title track debuted at number 8 in the UK and was also a hit in Spain. The title track received massive airplay as the official anthem of the 1992 Summer Olympics. Caballé sang it live at the opening of the Olympics with Mercury's part played on a screen, and again prior to the start of the 1999 UEFA Champions League final between Manchester United and Bayern Munich in Barcelona. In addition to the two solo albums, Mercury released several singles, including his own version of the hit, The Great Pretender, by The Platters, which debuted at number 5 in the UK in 1987. In September 2006, a compilation album featuring Mercury's solo work was released in the UK in honour of what would have been his 60th birthday. The album debuted in the UK top 10. In 1981-1983, Mercury recorded several tracks with Michael Jackson, including a demo of State of Shock, Victory, and There Must Be More to Life Than This. None of these collaborations were officially released at the time, although bootleg recordings exist. Jackson went on to record the single, State of Shock, with Mick Jagger for the Jacksons' album Victory. Mercury included the solo version of There Must Be More to Life Than This on his Mr. Bad Guy album. There Must Be More to Life Than This was eventually reworked by Queen and released on their compilation album Queen Forever in 2014. In addition to working with Michael Jackson, Mercury and Roger Taylor sang on the title track for Billy Squier's 1982 studio release, Emotions in Motion, and later contributed to 2 tracks on Squier's 1986 release, Enough Is Enough, providing vocals on Love Is the Hero, and musical arrangements on Lady with a Tenor Sax. Relationships. In the early 1970s, Mercury had a long-term relationship with Mary Austin, whom he met through guitarist Brian May. He lived with Austin for several years in West Kensington, London. By the mid-1970s, the singer had begun an affair with a male American record executive at Elektra Records, and in December 1976, Mercury told Austin of his sexuality, which ended their romantic relationship. Mercury moved out of the flat they shared, into 12 Stafford Terrace in Kensington and bought Austin a place of her own nearby. They remained close friends through the years, with Mercury often referring to her as his only true friend. In a 1985 interview, Mercury said of Austin, "All my lovers asked me why they couldn't replace Mary, Austin, but it's simply impossible. The only friend I've got is Mary, and I don't want anybody else. To me, she was my common-law wife. To me, it was a marriage. We believe in each other, that's enough for me." He also wrote several songs about Austin, the most notable of which is Love of My Life. Mercury's final home, Garden Lodge, 1 Logan Place, a 28-room Georgian mansion in Kensington set in a quarter-acre manicured garden surrounded by a high brick wall. had been picked out by Austin. In his will, Mercury left his London home to Austin, rather than his partner Jim Hutton, saying to her, "You would have been my wife, and it would have been yours anyway." Mercury was also the godfather of Austin's oldest son, Richard. During the early to mid-1980s, he was reportedly involved with Barbara Valentin, an Austrian actress, who is featured in the video for "It's a Hard Life." However, in another article, Valentin was just a friend, and Mercury was really dating German restaurateur Winfried Kirchberger during this time. By 1985, he began another long-term relationship with hairdresser Jim Hutton. Hutton, who was tested HIV positive in 1990, lived with Mercury for the last 6 years of his life, nursed him during his illness, and was present at his bedside when he died. Hutton said Mercury died wearing the wedding band that Hutton had given him. Friendship with Kenny Everett. Radio DJ Kenny Everett first met Mercury in 1974 when he invited the singer onto his breakfast show on Capital London. As two of Britain's most flamboyant, outrageous, and best-loved entertainers, they shared much in common and instantly became close friends. Everett would play a major role in Queen's early success when, in 1975, armed with an advance copy of the single, Bohemian Rhapsody, Mercury went to see Everett. While privately Everett doubted any station would play the song due to its length at over 6 minutes, he said nothing to Mercury and placed the song on the turntable, and, after hearing it, enthused, "Forget it. It's going to be #1 for centuries." While Capital Radio hadn't officially accepted the song, the anarchic Everett would talk incessantly about a record he had, but couldn't play, before the song, accidentally started playing, with Everett stating, "Oops, my finger must have slipped." Capital's switchboard was jammed with callers wanting to know when the song was going to be released. On one occasion Everett aired the song 36 times in one day. During the 1970s, their friendship became closer, with Everett becoming advisor and mentor to Mercury, and Mercury as Everett's confidant. Throughout the early to mid-1980s, they continued to explore their homosexuality, as well as experimenting in drugs. And although they were never lovers, they did experience London nightlife on a regular basis together. By 1985, they had fallen out over a disagreement on their using and sharing of drugs, and their friendship was further strained when Everett was outed in the autobiography of his ex-wife, Lady Lee, with Mercury taking Lee's side. With both suffering from failing health, Mercury and Everett started talking again in 1989, and they were able to reconcile their differences. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?